this front axle, it's got some pretty scaly rust that I'm wire wheeling off of it here. I've been procrastinating on this job because it's really rusty. Even though I've repaired a lot of it already, you can see it's coming through, because it's like, what can you do to that? That's some serious pitting on there. But I want to use this truck, so I can't just leave it sitting here like this. So I'm going to cut off all these running board brackets and make some patches, and I'm going to protect the area that I already welded new steel into. But as for the rest, we're just going to get it so it's not full of holes. We're going to skim down the rust, put some more primer on there, see what we can do, but it's never going to be perfect. We just got to be able to use it. It's got to be together, and that's about it. Just gave it a quick cleaning with a wire brush and some Scotch-Brite, and we're gonna squirt epoxy primer in there. This side too, cleaned up, and we loaded her full of epoxy primer. I'll put another coat in there once this dries, but that's the best I can do for it, really. I'm starting to get somewhere here. I got that corner patched, just small patches. I left part of it open. I'll make a removable cover, but that's so that it's able to be cleaned out instead of just these little holes where everything would get caught in the ends like that. And I got the back of the pillar thing all put back together, back of the cab patched up. So now we're just gonna double over all the little bits of rusty edges before the last paint job, and that'll be it. I'm done with under here. We're gonna put this thing back on the frame. Hi, T-Bad here. I'm gonna get a little bit of work done on my Superduty here. It's been ripped apart all summer. We got the bottom of the cab all repaired and painted. All the rust is repaired here on the frame, for the most part anyways. We gotta get the axles back in it, and then figure out the front axles in the backyard, and doesn't exactly fit through here. And then I gotta use my hoist. We're gonna lift this cab all the way to the top and slide the frame back underneath. Get this F-250 back together. So here's what I got going on here. This Superduty has been just a frame sitting on this piece of wood in my driveway all summer. There's like little specks of rust in these areas that I couldn't clean good, but for the most part it's still nicely painted. I'll probably clean it, give it one more coat once it's all together, but the motor should be ready to go. I replaced all the broken studs and got new exhaust manifolds on there. Everything else, I think I just gotta hook it up. Gotta replace this pigtail here. It's got a few odd things, but we're gonna get her. The cab is ready to go. All the rust that was in the engine bay area, all cleaned up, or at least painted over really well. Got the inner rockers and the bottom of the floor all the rust cleaned off. She's painted and patched. Eventually I'll replace the entire inner rocker. But for now, I left these access holes in all the corners. I'll make a cover for them, but that's so that it can be cleaned out. And like, see how it's a low spot here, but the drain holes over there, it needs a way to clean it up. Did a small patch on the back, and both of these cab corners have been replaced. They need final finishing, but they're coming along pretty good. I'm still gonna have to do something about the back doors. They both are patched up very poorly. And we need to finish the driver's floor pan here and the outer rocker. But I'm gonna repair those more like everybody else does with the cab on the frame. The majority of the work here is all just wire wheel and clean the metal with your grinder, because it was very, very bad. But our axles, just painted that one yesterday. That's what we're working on getting in here now. Gonna use a cherry picker to help with that. Get the rear in, and the front one is over here ready to go. Still in the backyard how I painted it. This should be pretty easy. Just kind of lift it up, lower it down into place, put the U-bolts in. The front will be the same, just a little bit of pushing the parts around to get them in there. I just had to search around everywhere for my U-bolts. Somehow they got mixed up and got a white paint job. Everything's too heavy for me to wiggle it and get this last little bit of the alignment, so I'm gonna have to lift it up with from the front and kind of roll it back and get it to fall in place. Got it pulled up front, lift it up nice and high. The rear end went in on one side. One side's tight. This side, I gotta get the pin to go in the hole still. got her all back together here, and I went around and took it apart and put it back together over and over until I got all the little clips like these and similar things all ran the right way and neatly how they were before I took it all apart. The wiring harness for the frame needed a repair of one wire in there, some new ground end terminals on it, got it nicely clicked in just as it belongs, tucked in with everything, and we cleaned all the ground connections all along it. The exhaust is all connected all along. It's pretty quiet, and I ran it for over an hour at idle to do the break-in procedure for the ceramic coating on the manifolds. I took apart the passenger side fuel rail and inspected the rail and all the injectors because of how back there is modified, and there was hacksaw shavings and things you don't want inside here. I couldn't really do the driver's side as it's really far in there, and I've already spent more money than I want, so I don't want to break any more things along the way. Also did a little wire repair there. I marked them all in red just in case I have an issue down the road. They're easy to find. There's no issues with the cooling system, no leaks. Power steering system as well, all hooked up. Ran through the cooler, no leaks. Still have to do the steering linkages, but so now I'm at the point where I'm starting to put new parts on here and get it ready to be able to pass the safety. A little bit of nicer looking stuff on this side. Everything's all shiny with the paint behind it. Everything all new and fresh. The backing pad where the e-brakes go is completely rotted off and gone. It's like this on both sides. So I bought new backing plates for fully loaded assembly with the e-brake stuff, everything inside there to put on here. I made a big mess because of the brake fluid, but there was only me here, so I gravity bled them just to get them started. There's probably still a little bit of air in there. Now I got a mess to clean up under here before I go rolling around again. I just gave it a quick cleaning with some steel wool on the bumper, and it cleaned off most of the overspray. I did a 2000 grit wet sand and then buffed the headlights. They came back to life. I could do it better. We'll see once I get further in. The next thing to replace is this dipstick tube for the transmission. I had this one in here. This one's from one of my mid-90s two-wheel drive F-150 transmissions. But look at this. If you line these up with each other, like how I had it in the hole, it would have measured it perfectly fine for me. It's about the exact same length. There we are. That's nicer having the proper dipstick tube in there. Got my old wheels back on, and I was able to drive it around the yard, and I sprung a little transmission leak right over there. That's not good. I think I'm just gonna try and replace it with a piece of rubber hose for now, but transmission lines and parts are expensive for this. Well, since it drives, it's gonna need an interior, like the seats and stuff in here again. So time to finish up doing what we're gonna do to this floor. I just went around with my good old flat screwdriver, scraped that off. I have a patch to do there on the bottom of the rocker and continue scraping along. But we're just gonna do a quick and easy one for now. floor pan replacement and rocker panel replacement is out of my budget, so that'll be a thing for later down the road. After cleaning this over and over and over again with wire wheels and little Scotch-Brite pads, this is what I got. It's really pitted. We got little holes through here, and we got a decent sized area right there that's all gone bad, and a lot of pits. But I got all the rust out of there that I can, and I'm gonna try metal to metal body filler over that and fill in the holes and level out the pits, and then we'll cover it with epoxy primer and just, yeah, see how long that lasts, I guess. And after that, when it rots out again, then we'll do the floor pan. Well, that's spread out pretty nicely. I filled in the little groove that usually would have seam sealer in it. It says this stuff is waterproof and moisture proof and pretty good for corrosion. So I just gave it a nice coating, filled in all the little pits, and I'm not even going to sand it before painting. It's kind of got a little bit of texture to it. And I'm going to paint right over it with epoxy primer to seal in the last little bits of the exposed metal. And that'll be that. We'll see how long it lasts. I just brushed on my epoxy primer this time. I figured if I brushed it versus spraying, then there's no overspray going on inside the cab and under the dash. And brushing it, it ends up really thick, and it filled in all the little pits and divots and any little thing in there. And it's going to be underneath the floor mat there, so it doesn't, its appearance, it doesn't matter very much. What matters is the waterproofness. And it looks very waterproof. I'll get new clips to go in those holes. And that'll be that. We're going to cover it up. Hopefully not look at it for quite a while. Got my floor mat and seat back in. And now I'm going to finish up this rocker panel and the cab corner. We'll have to tape off the entrance to the cab, but we'll get this area finished up. The cab corner was just roughed in, so it's still all full of deep scratches and just has a thin coat of paint on it. So I'm going to scuff it down with 220, and I'm going to put a skim coat of that metal to metal filler. It says you can top your body filler with it for extra corrosion protection. So we'll try it out. There we are, a full skim coat on there. And I'm not the best at spreading it smoothly. So let's hope that sands down fairly easy and we'll be good to go. Oh, I missed the clip of it sanded down. It was sanded down all right. Here's a ladybug stuck in my first coat of epoxy primer here. Get out of here, bud. Just awful getting a bug in there. Well, there's some nice marks in the corner, but otherwise we're getting her coated. I'll put a couple coats on there and then I'll sand it down. There's a dust speck and that might even be filler underneath, but we'll sand it down, touch it up. No big deal. Had a couple little mess ups there. I blew into it with the air to try and remove the mark and it made a big one, but oh well. We'll have to fix that later because she's going white. Well, that white's not as close of a match as I expected for supposed to be in matching, but oh well. The key is that it's painted and we can keep some rust away for a little bit, hopefully. I got this antenna that's rusting a hole in my roof, so I'm gonna put a patch over that right now. Well, this is all I did. Riveted that plate on, and it's got epoxy primer under and on top. I installed it wet, so it's gonna be paint soaked on every edge really good. And then I'm gonna wipe it over with short strand fiberglass Bondo. There it is. And yep, it's way too thick and looks like poop, but it'll be waterproof. I'm gonna change this tie rod end here, the one going to the pitman arm. And this is the measurement I'm gonna use. I'm gonna use the millimeter side because it's touching. And it looks like 116.5. I just cut off the bolts here with my grinder since I got a new adjustment sleeve and this comes on there. So we won't be needing that. So I'll just smash them out of the way with my hammer. And then down in the bottom over here is where the little split is. I'm gonna hammer my punch in there, stretch it open, and then I'll get some penetrating fluid in there and that should come right off. I got the penetrating fluid worked in with a pipe wrench now. It goes right through that rust, and it'll all unscrew fairly easily. Got the new one in. I think I'm at about 117. I'm going to the part with no threads on it, so just a teeny bit snugged up and it'll be good. I basically had to thread it till the rust starts. I'm gonna go a tiny bit more, so just about, we'll leave that so it drains. So we'll put it like that. I put a couple extra threads on this side so that I would leave my self-adjustment and not run into the super rusty side. So now just put all these little holding brackets where they belong, snug everything up, and I think I got a shock to snug up there. Yep, down there. And that'll be the steering. This is the direction all the bolts faced before I took it apart. But that one, this one, looks really long and close to that. So I think I'm going to shorten that guy up a little bit. Here's the bad ball joint. You can see lots of play in it. Next, we got to fix the transmission leak. This filter and the corroded lines on here and corroded fittings, that's going to be my next problem that's a leak. So I just bought all new lines, and I bought everything for a newer truck so that it doesn't have this filter anymore. That means this crusty pan on the bottom of the transmission, that's going. We're getting rid of that. We're getting a new pickup and filter for in there, a different one, and a different pan, and I'm going to replace my temperature sensor in there as well. Come on, no big mess on me. You can see it's pretty clean red stuff. It looked clean on the dipstick too. All the filtration in there, it should be clean. Well, that was fun. There's a new one. But this thing, wow, that had me nervous. All the bolts barely came out. I got them, but they didn't want to crack. They were corroded. You can see how bad this seal is all the way around. So the transmission looked the same, and that meant about 2 hours of scraping to get it clean. And there's that little sensor I changed. So hopefully that fixes the temperature problem in there. The new one of those that I put in is about twice as wide with the different pan, so it should do a good job filtering when I take away that one up there. Here's the old lines versus the new lines. No more filter in there and no more rust, and the connections will be able to be disconnected and reconnected properly. I just pulled the drain plug for the rear end, and that's not good. Look at all the stuff on there. So I'm gonna pop all the bolts out of here and we'll see what it looks like inside. It's kind of rusty looking, I think. We'll see when we get in there. Huh, that's kind of what I thought. No. Well, you can see where the gears were meshing and all the surface rust on there. So I guess that's probably my little grumbly rear end noise. Some of that and some of that surface rust inside there. Well, I guess I'm just gonna clean it all out with brake clean and fill her back up. Well, 4 cans of brake clean, roll of paper towels. The WD-40 was for while it sits overnight, but she's covered up and sealed. We're gonna let the sealant dry and then I'll torque them bolts down. That'll be that. Well, now I think it's time to replace this belt that's all cracked up and the back of it's all worn out. We'll put a new one on, and look at the pulleys. All the pulleys are full of the rubber from the back of the belt, so I'm scraping it off the water pump one, and then that idler and the tensioner, I got new ones to replace them. That belt's going around nice and smooth now. That upper idler pulley was a little bit smaller, so the clearance under the tensioner there, she's a little bit close. Here we are with it all tarped up. I just sprayed epoxy primer all along the bottom of the rocker there, wire wheeled and scotch brighted everything off there till it was shiny. And yep, epoxy primer for protection. We'll get 2 or 3 coats and then we'll paint it white. The first coat of white here, it's all stripy. I think I'm too used to painting with the gun now. When I use the little spray can, it doesn't spray out like I'm expecting. I went the other direction this time, up and down, to hide the lines in the paint a little bit. And I was almost through, and look at my paint can. It ran out of air in there. There's still paint inside, but it ran out of compressed air. So at least we got it pretty white, a little bit stripy, but who's looking at the corner? Here's the new e-brake backing pad / brake caliper holder assembly. They were like $400 and some a piece, pretty expensive. But it went in good other than destroying the seal in the axle hub whenever I had to pull that. Over on this side, the e-brakes are rubbing a little bit. You can see it's heated up the inside of the disc there. I think what it is doing that is back here, the cable's just a little bit seized up. I gotta lube it up just a little bit better. So I'll work some, I think I'm gonna use silicone lubricant on that, and I'm gonna work it in and we'll get her freed up a little bit. Just a couple times of spraying her down here, squishing the pedal, and we'll spray that one down. Release. Over here, it did not release, so we'll hammer it back with the pry bar and the hammer and repeat the cycle. Well, it didn't work. It's a little bit looser, but I'm just gonna leave it in the released position for now, and we'll need new cables to make it work proper. I made this little flat deck for it the other day. Just something nice and plain and simple. Got little brackets for the walls and stuff from the hardware store. Some trailer lights for it. It's all made out of angle iron and C-channel and thicker steel. It's much lighter than the original box was, but it'll be pretty strong for what I need it for. I got some new wheels for it. They're BFG all-trains. I think they're a 33-inch, they're 285 70/17s. They're at the tire shop right now getting mounted onto some aluminum rims that I got that came with this parts truck I bought right at the end of getting my truck built here. Too bad I didn't have it sooner, because it looks like all nice brand new brake parts, everything in pretty good shape up there. Old version of similar shocks that I bought. Same with the rear. All the brake parts are here and in good shape. It could have saved me a lot more money had I had it sooner and not replaced all my brake parts with brand new stuff, but I'm gonna have a good working truck here when I'm all finished. Got the rims and tires back from the tire shop, and yeah, that makes a good difference in the way this truck looks. From the old rusty snowplow that it used to be falling apart, a little bit nicer of a wheel and rim on there. Looks really good to me. That's gonna be enough to get me on the road and get me driving to figure out what my next problems are and what to fix next on this truck. There shouldn't be too much more, because I put a lot of work into this thing from where it's come from. But there's still a little bit of rust repair in the fenders to fix up. And we got that parts truck over there. So I'm gonna go through and get what's good, switch it over here. So I'm gonna hit the road, check back in to T-Bad's trucks and stuff, see how I made out and what's next to come. We got lots of trucks to work on, and it's always nice making them work better.